Alright, YouTube, Donald Trump is doing much better in polling than he was a week ago. There are several things to point out here, though, because there are a lot of misconceptions flying around about polling. First and foremost, the polling that you're seeing right now almost doesn't matter at all. Whether it shows Clinton ahead by 1,000,000,000% or Trump way at the top, we haven't even had a presidential debate yet. Until at least the first debate, the polls are a poor barometer of what's going to happen. And forgive Nate Silver for having Trump at 30% odds of winning, because all he's doing is looking at the polls that are aggregated. He can't help it. He's fixated on mathematics. That's where his accuracy in most elections has come from. The fact is that that number changes on a day-to-day basis. It could show Trump up at 90% next week, for all we know. So saying, oh, well, he's shilling for Clinton, no, he's giving a mathematical estimate. I'll give him a pass on that. He wasn't as accurate as I was during the primaries. He wasn't as accurate as, people who don't even study statistics or, in some cases, political science. And, ignore Larry Sabato as well, because his projection at this point's useless. It's Rubio! Couldn't help it. But, yeah, that's the first thing. The polls right now are not the greatest indicator of reality because we got 2 months to go before the election. So you're going to have to wait a while. Wait till the debates are underway. And especially, we've got at least one potential campaign imploder that will be coming up before November. And that's the sort of wild card in the whole game, WikiLeaks. Julian Assange has already said, yeah, well, we have more dirt on Clinton. We'll be dropping it before the election. It's just a matter of when. Until that happens, you really aren't going to know the result because it could be really damaging. If he's saving the best for last, probably far worse than what happened with the DNC. What could possibly be worse than, the entire Democratic apparatus completely rigged their own primaries against an elderly socialist beloved by everybody in the Democratic Party under 35 years of age in order to jerry-rig Hillary Clinton into the position because she was too inept to run her own campaign and needed a lot of help. What could possibly be worse than that? I have a feeling it comes from the Clinton campaign itself, probably says unflattering things about minorities. We've seen some of this from the DNC anyway, so it would be par for the course. I expect to see, Huma Abedin flinging racial slurs or something like that. And if it's that damaging, her odds of being elected drop dramatically, even if she's already under 50. Even if she's ahead, they drop down to even. If they're about even, they drop significantly below that. By the way, all these state projections are worthless. It would be like if I had predicted the Super Tuesday states and how they would vote before voting in Iowa was underway. It would have been a fool's errand. It wouldn't have made any sense. We're 60+ days out from the election and people are already making predictions. I've put up predictors of where I project if things continue to go as they're going, it will end up. I see Trump winning with about 299 or thereabouts, and not a landslide victory, but certainly a solid victory, involving most of the Rust Belt. Ohio, Michigan, maybe Wisconsin at this point, probably Pennsylvania, although it's looking less likely. I don't think he's going to lose Arizona or Missouri or North Carolina. I think at this point he's probably got Florida already. It seems like he's basically sewn it up in Iowa. And Hillary, meanwhile, is having to fight for the Rust Belt and the Lakes region, which is taking a lot of her money and a lot of her effort that really, I'm sure, she would rather be diverting it at the Deep South. This is why Trump is a stronger candidate. Any other candidate right now would be losing Georgia. They'd be losing both of the Carolinas. They'd probably be at hazard in Arkansas. They might even be behind in Texas. Trump's not having that problem. He had heavy support in the Deep South. It's going to buoy him up. It's not going to be like in the 90s when Bubba Bill won several of the deep southern states. It's not going to happen. Hillary will not win those states. She's not going to win Georgia unless Trump collapses on stage tomorrow or shits all over himself or something like that. I think Hillary's more likely to do that. The second thing is ranting about polling bias, rigged polls, methodology. Don't bother. You sound like Karl Rove in 2012 before almost having a heart attack when his supposedly unskewed aggregate of polls was shown to be woefully wrong. When people mention 2014, they're right. There was a systemic oversampling of Democrats in 2014 because the number of actual Democrats that showed up at the polls was far lower than the number expected to show up. But we don't know what turnout's going to be. I have every reason to believe turnout will be higher for the Trump camp because in my estimation, much of Trump's support that he's polling at, the high 30s, low 40s area, much of it, about 3/4 of that is hardened support. They're people who not only don't like Hillary Clinton, but like Donald Trump. They will show up in massive numbers. Whereas with Hillary, she's at about the same number right now. I expect that less than 20 points of that support, less than half, is hardened. Most of those people simply dislike Trump. Most of them don't even like Hillary Clinton. Her unfavorability now is higher. She's got big problems with unfavorability. She's got huge problems with untrustworthiness. She's not going to be able to solve them before November if she had a chance of solving them from the get-go. They've gotten worse. Her Reno speech did not help. In fact, she shoved her own head underwater. A person who's sitting there almost drowning takes their own head and shoves it down under the waves, and obviously this does great wonders for their health. That's what I see happening. So, polling methodology, bias, don't even bother thinking about them. We don't know in what direction bias may go. Yeah, there was a bias in the polls towards the Democrats in 2014, not because of rigging, but because of expected turnout. They were basing it on 2008 numbers. We don't know what turnout's going to be right now. And it's true, there are more registered Democrats than registered Republicans in the United States. That has nothing to do with turnout. If it's even Stevens, I expect Trump probably to win. Yeah, if they're tied on election night in 3 or 4 different polls, I will expect Trump to edge Hillary Clinton. That would be my prediction that I'll make, within the days before the election. I'm not going to make a general election prediction until all of the debates are over, because it would be stupid. We could have another rhubarb moment that really sinks one or the other candidate there, or a third-party candidate could be up on that stage. There's still the remote possibility Johnson gets in. He's got Bernie Sanders openly proclaiming, yeah, he should be in. By the way, this is not an attempt to support Hillary. I think this is Sanders' way of getting back at her while sounding unbiased. Johnson gets up on that stage, he's going to out-left Hillary Clinton and destroy her campaign. It's not going to do anything to Trump. You're going to see 2 people arguing for, less border security. Trump's going to be sitting there astonished. He's going to sit there and allow Johnson to browbeat Hillary Clinton on the drug war, and it'll be hilarious, because that's what he'll do. And, to tell the truth, Johnson would be the 3rd best speaker on the stage. He's not that charismatic. He's decent. There's nothing specifically wrong with him. But he either gets hot under the collar and sort of goes off, like with immigration, which is what finally made me say, well, fuck this. I can't, the Libertarian Party's good, but Gary Johnson's, he's losing it or something. Or he's a little bit too much on the quiet and slightly incoherent side. He looks charismatic, yeah, he looks presidential, he climbs fucking mountains all the time. But that does not a president make in the minds of most of the electorate. They don't really, I guess, care about personal health. If they cared about health, Hillary Clinton wouldn't have any supporters. So that's number 2. So yeah, number 1, the polls this far don't matter. Number 2, ranting about methodology really doesn't matter. Number 3, thus, because we don't know if there's polling bias or in what direction it could go, don't immediately assume that because one poll shows Trump ahead, or 2 polls now, Rasmussen and CNN, that he's actually ahead. Yeah, he probably is by a point by now. But we have to wait for the polling to stabilize, because you still got older polls there showing Clinton up 3 or 4 points, which was reasonable at the time. And I'll point something else out. Media did Clinton a huge disservice when they were pretending that she was 10, 15 points ahead. Made her look strong till she fucked herself. See, that's what the media wasn't counting on. They were counting on Clinton staying in the lead. So they'd be saying, oh yeah, Clinton's 8 points ahead. Yeah, she's 12 points ahead. Yeah, between 10 and 15 points ahead or something like that. And they'd be able to fawn over her. They wouldn't have to ask her any questions. She wouldn't have to talk to the press. She could practically skip the debates. And nobody would care because she'd have the election in the bag. That didn't happen, which anyone with a brain would have known wasn't going to happen. She wasn't going to stabilize at that number. It was only a matter of time before she managed to fuck herself, or WikiLeaks came out and fucked her for her. And it did. And so now the media, by its same admittedly flawed methodology, should be saying, oh, Clinton collapses, loses 15 points in a single week post-Reno. That's what they should be saying. They're proclaiming her 15 points ahead now. I said at the time, now she's like 8 or 9 points ahead. Yeah, she's got a substantial lead, but it's not 15 points. Maybe it's 7, maybe it's 6, somewhere around there. 6 or 7 points, 8 or 9 points, maybe 10, you're kind of pushing it. But the polls showing her like 13, 17 points ahead, they were outliers. It was so clear that they were, but the media reported on them, and they didn't even aggregate it. This is the worst part. This is why I tell people, use RCP or some fair aggregate. And I don't mean the unskewed aggregate, by the way, because that's a form of skewing if the bias is in the other direction. It could be the polls are biased towards Trump, and you're really hurting yourself, and you're waiting on election night. Clinton wins by 10 points. You have no idea what's going on. You'll be just like Karl Rove. No, look at him in an unbiased fashion. Don't look at him from the pie-in-the-sky optimist perspective and say, oh, well, the poll that shows Trump the furthest ahead is the right one. All the others are wrong. Any more than the Clinton fans should. In 2014, of course, the Democrats were the ones trying to cherry-pick the polls. The media tried to do this with Clinton, so they were fixating on a handful of outliers that showed her 12, 17 points ahead. Now the outliers are like, oh, well, she's, 5 points ahead or something like that. So you're telling me, okay, she collapsed more than 10 points in a week. Well, that should be your headline by your own admission. That's the methodology you choose to use because you're obviously not using an aggregator. They didn't do any favors for her because all of a sudden these people who remember the headline from a couple weeks ago, oh, Clinton 17 points ahead, she's unstoppable now, election's in the bag, look at the polling and they think she suffered a total collapse. What they don't realize is she was never that far ahead. She was never ahead by double digits. She was ahead by 8 or 9 points maybe. So yeah, she's lost a lot of support, about 7 points of support in a week, a point a day. That's not very good. It's akin to like Rubio collapse mode. But it's not utterly and completely catastrophic. What it does show, though, and this is, I think, the case, and I said at the time when she made her Reno speech, right after she made it, nobody had really analyzed it. I said this is going to go down as one of the biggest mistakes in electoral history. Does it now not seem like that's true? Look at her support, how it's collapsed. Especially in places like Iowa, some hayseed town, they don't give a fuck about the alt-right. They see Clinton doing this, and people, it's the Rubio effect, really, is what it is. Rubio attempted to attack Trump, and he lost about half of his supporters when he did. People said, well, he's just doing what Trump did. You don't understand. The people who were backing him liked him for being quiet and well-spoken and mild-mannered. That's why a lot of those people liked him. That's why they were choosing him over Trump or Cruz or somebody like that. It was more, they were into the verbal fist fight. And they flocked to Kasich when they left Rubio. Kasich made the same mistake. It was hilarious. It was bigger on Rubio's part than Kasich's. Kasich's never had a chance anyway. He's never going to be the nominee. Neither, by the way, was Ted Cruz. It was obvious after Super Tuesday he was locked in the Santorum corner. Nobody wanted to believe me, but it was true. Oh, sweet victory it is, analyzing these things. Yeah, after Reno, her support, especially in Iowa, just completely collapsed. Florida, she's going to lose Florida, I think. Didn't do her any favors, oddly enough, in Virginia. And I wouldn't be, by the way, these states that, like Nate Silver has to mathematically posit are in play, doesn't mean they're necessarily in play. Georgia's not in play. Arizona and Missouri are not in play. Michigan at this point, by the way, on Hillary's side, she's like 6-7 points ahead. I no longer think that Michigan is in play. I think she's going to hold Michigan. That being said, though, its neighboring state, Wisconsin, now looks like it's in play. She's more ahead in Michigan than Wisconsin. I didn't expect that. I expected it would be Michigan with the sort of the loss of manufacturing, that it would be up for grabs. It'd be difficult for Trump, but he could get it. Looks like that's out of reach now, unless he does really, really well. Rises 10 points nationwide. Possible, but not particularly likely. But Wisconsin is in reach. She's like 4 or 5 points ahead there. It's almost like a microcosm of national polling. She's not that much further ahead in Wisconsin than nationally. I think the same thing is in play. Like Iowa, large rural population, they want somebody who's soft-spoken. Who's been the more soft-spoken candidate off of Twitter in the last couple of weeks? Donald Trump. Hillary's been the one flinging insults around. This coughing spell, by the way, is not going to help her. Because then even the mainstream media, Clinton made a big mistake too, with the little presser that she tried to hold on her plane. Because one of the reporters asked about her health, and she's like, oh yeah, look up my records or something, or check my pulse or something. She didn't answer the question. And it's going to be framed, even the media that likes Hillary has to frame it in the context of her breaking down in a 4-minute coughing fit in Ohio, as well as a second coughing fit on her plane, during which time she just sort of disappears with her MD or whatever the big Secret Service looking dude is who follows her everywhere. Probably got to go get a shot of something, some anti-cancer drugs or syphilis treatments. Who knows what she has? I don't even want to know. If you saw her naked, I'm sure she'd have some sores on her from one malady or another, though. It'd be pretty chunky. It'd be some hideous stuff. But yeah, Hillary Clinton is no longer particularly ahead. If she's in the lead at all once the aggregate settles down, once the movement sort of slows down for a few days of polling, I expect it to be about tied. Which is great news for Trump. That's exactly where he wants to be. He wants it to be a nail-biter, I think, before the debates anyway. He should go into the first debate, absolutely annihilate her, just attack everything about her. Then in the next two debates, simmer down. Don't even address her if you can help it. Talk about your own plans and look really presidential. Because you just need to hammer away one more time at the trustworthiness and then wait for WikiLeaks. And then she's done. She'll be knocked out completely at that point. So yeah, a little bit of a look at the polls. CNN has Trump up by 2. Now CNN, I hope that nobody is going to proclaim that this has like a systemic bias in favor of Trump, because it's CNN, let's face it. Rasmussen, but I'm not going to even bother considering Rasmussen. Rasmussen has been one of the least accurate polling firms. I wish RCP would not take them seriously. I don't know why Nate Silver compiles them. They were so wrong in 2012. They were so wrong in 2014. It's not a worthy polling source anymore. By the way, in this election, it looks like Monmouth, which usually has a fairly good reputation. It looks like they're going to be a total outlier pro-Democrat. I question whether I should pay attention to Monmouth at this point. I can't remember the other polling name. I know NBC has had some bias in there. But Rasmussen has a pretty prevalent Republican bias and has for several cycles. They haven't changed their methodology. Their methodology didn't work. This time around, it might be a little closer to the truth because it looks like turnout's going to be higher for Trump. And turnout really is what screws with the polls. The polls would be accurate if turnout could be accurately projected. That's about all. Peace out.